you so much, Chair Maloney and the committee for having me today. You know, being LGBTQ in America in 2022 means looking over your shoulder before you hold hands with someone you love. It means watching your very humanity be litigated day in and day out on every cable news network and across every social media platform. It means wondering if today is the day that hate comes armed with a clenched fist or worse, an AR-15. It means wondering if today, your little slice of normal, the thing you told yourself you didn't deserve, comes to an end. My day came on June 12th of 2016. Pulse nightclub was one of the first places I ever went that I didn't look over my shoulder, where I didn't stiffen my wrist or deepen my voice to avoid detection. And that night, everything about Pulse nightclub was normal. I went to the same bartender I always went to, ordered the same drinks I always ordered, and as the night wound to a close, I stepped into the same bathroom I'd been in hundreds of times before. There was a poster on the wall with the painted faces of drag queens I knew well. There was a half-empty cup teetering on the edge of the sink like it might fall off. The water from the faucet was ice cold that night. There were gunshots, endless gunshots, the hair standing up on the back of my neck, the stench of blood and smoke burning the inside of my nose, the nervous huddle against a wall, a girl trying desperately, so hard not to scream that I could feel her trembling on the tiles underneath us. There was a sprint for the exit, all atop this bang, bang, bang from an assault weapon. A man filled with hate and armed with a Sig Sauer MCX charged into Pulse in my city of Orlando, an LGBTQ safe space, and murdered 49 of those we loved. My best friends, Drew and Juan, took 19 of the over 110 rounds that man pumped into the club. I'll never forget the thousands of desperate calls I placed to Drew, or his family's heartbroken screams when I had to tell them that their child would not be coming home. And I can never unsee both of their lifeless bodies in cold, hard caskets. For years, cynical politicians and greedy grifters have joined forces with right-wing extremists to pour gasoline on anti-LGBTQ hysteria and terrorize our community. My own governor, Ron DeSantis, has trafficked in that bigotry to feed his insatiable political ambition and propel himself toward the White House. We have been smeared and defamed. Hundreds of bills have been filed in order to erase us. Powerful figures have insisted that the greatest threats this country face are a teacher with they, them pronouns or someone in a wig reading red fish, blue fish. And all along, we warned that these short-sighted political maneuvers would come with a human cost, but they've continued anyway. Even as queer kids told us that they were scared, that life was getting less safe for them, even as hate violence has escalated, as children's hospitals have faced mounting bomb threats, as armed protesters started showing up at pride festivals and brunches, as a donut shop in Oklahoma was firebombed for daring to host a drag show, even as 5 innocent people in Colorado Springs went into a space that was supposed to be safe for them and came out in body bags, the attacks have continued. We can be better than that. We have to be better than that. Right-wing extremism relies on this manufactured belief that its poison is inevitable, that resistance is hopeless, but I contend that taking a stand is necessary, that it is our duty. We need to say without apology that people who endanger entire marginalized communities for social media content and fundraising fodder have no place in our politics. We need to hold accountable those who traffic in venomous bigotry to score cheap political points. We need to address how our obsession with easy access to guns takes dangerous hatred and makes it fatal. And we need to say unequivocally right here, right now, that LGBTQ lives matter, that trans lives matter, and that in this country that is not up for debate. Words have consequences. Unbridled hate comes at a cost. Our stolen loved ones are not a talking point. They're missing faces at birthday parties, empty seats at dinner tables. They paid the price for militarized hate in this country. It is high time that Congress gets serious about the cost of anti-LGBTQ hatred and commit to honoring those in its crosshairs with real actions. The simple truth is this: we just want to live. Is that so much to ask?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Overtime. Let me just make one small change here, and then I think we'll be good to go. Thank you for joining us. For those of you who are just joining us, we are streaming on both In Time and Overtime. We are going to go back to, we're going to finish splitting the channel. It's going to take a little time, but there are many reasons for doing this. We are going to be outlining that fully on our Discord, so come join us on the Discord to learn more about that. If you're watching on In Time, you will be getting a slight delay. You're probably going to be about 20 seconds behind the live show on Overtime, so come join us on Overtime. That you just saw was Brandon Wolf. He was a survivor of the Pulse nightclub shooting, speaking in front of the U.S. House Committee on Oversight and Reform. Representative Carolyn Maloney said, quote, these actions are the culmination of years of anti-LGBTQI extremism that began in state houses across the country and spread to social media platforms before boiling over into the communities where we reside. The Human Rights Campaign, which has been tracking legislation and social media trends pertaining to LGBTQ+, noted that in this year alone, 23 states introduced more than 300 anti-LGBTQ+ bills. They also noted a sharp increase in slurs and hostile language on social media correlating with the introduction of these bills. For example, in March, when Florida passed the, quote, Parental Rights in Education Act, dubbed by its critics as the, quote, Don't Say Gay bill, incidents of hate speech against LGBTQ rose on Twitter by 406% over the previous month. The American Association of Pediatrics has repeatedly endorsed proper evidence-based care for patients and by their physicians. In January, the American Association of Pediatrics released a statement saying in part that, quote, it is critically important for every child to have access to quality, comprehensive, and evidence-based care. Transgender and gender-diverse youth are no exception. As pediatricians, we will continue to speak up and advocate for our patients. We also want transgender and gender-diverse youth to know that not only do we care for them, we care about them. We value them, and we will do all we can to ensure they have access to the care they need and deserve. This policy is consistent with the American Medical Association and the American Psychiatric Association's policies, all of which were arrived at independent of each other. This view, however, has recently been challenged last week by psychiatrist Dr. Marjorie Taylor Greene, magna cum laude graduate from Harvard Medical School, board certified by the American Board of Medical Specialties in... I'm just kidding. She's got a BA in Business Administration from the University of Georgia. Ms. Greene is the sponsor of the, quote, Protect the Children's Innocence Act, which seeks to ban all gender-affirming care regardless of medical need as assessed by medical professionals, and further would make it more difficult for adults to get the similar kind of care, while also banning medical schools from teaching about gender-affirming care in any way whatsoever. She claims that she did this in part because she's concerned about parents who have been forcing their kids against their wills to become transgender. a claim which has no basis in any medical or historical evidence or even any grounding in reality that I'm aware of or have ever even heard of. If it were true, by the way, it would already violate the ethics of every single medical organization in the country. Doctors must provide for their patients, not the insane wishes of the patient's parents. If the patient's parents said, we would like to make our children transgender, it would already be against the law for, well, at least unethical. I would assume it's against the law somewhere, but I'll be honest, I don't know. It's certainly a violation of the American Medical Association practices to start that procedure simply because the parents choose it. So Marjorie Taylor Greene can rest easy. What she's concerned about is already taken care of. We all know she's lying. The Donald Trump FTEs released last week are starting to raise some significant questions. They were widely mocked by Trump detractors and even by Trump supporters. All 45,000 of them sold in under 12 hours, raising approximately $4.5 million. Nearly another million has been raised on the secondary market, where 10% of resales of each of them go back to the original company. Now, we've been trying to figure out who owns this company and where it comes from. It appears to be a shell company with a mailing address to a UPS store in a strip mall in Park City, Utah. Now, this company has a benefactor company. They have not identified this benefactor company and will not, but it appears to be actually the main company. They have, however, said that this company is not owned, managed, or in any way whatsoever run by Trump, any of his associates, or the Trump organization. But we don't know who it is. We do know that they have licensed his image from a company called CIC Digital LLC, which is a company founded in 2021 by former Trump advisor and White House aide Nick Luna and by current Trump lawyer John Marion. It lists the Trump International Golf Club in West Palm Beach as its business address. Meanwhile, other significant questions have come up regarding the images used for the TFTs, and a number of them, in fact, a very, very large number of them, have already been identified as having been taken off of the internet from places like Men's Warehouse, from ads on Amazon and Walmart, and even on images that have been unlicensed from places like Shutterstock and Adobe Stock. So let's take a quick look at a few of these. Just for, oh dear Lord, okay. So we have seen before this one. We showed this one early on. That is Trump in this. This was one of the first ones we showed. And what you will note, and what's interesting about this is actually it looks like they took ideas from different ones. You can see two coats on the right. Both of those are available on Amazon. They are the Scully Ranger. What is that? Well, I'll get the name in a second, but it's a duster. It looks like they took the coloring from the top one and applied it to the bottom one. There are slight differences in the coat itself. The hands are identical, and if you take a look at the hands on Donald Trump, they are identical to the hands on the right, same exact position. The coat is identical to the bottom coat, although it has the coloring of the top. The bottom coat has one extra button. You'll see that on him. The collars are identical. Everything's identical. The only thing is they've added a sheriff's badge, but absolutely everything else is absolutely identical. It is irrefutable that image was taken from the bottom one and colored to match the top. They simply photoshopped his head onto it. This here is the original image, and that is still available on Amazon if anybody would like to get it. I believe it's got a great deal more value than the entire collection of Trump NFTs, but you can see at this quite clearly that's absolutely identical to the previous image. The color was again taken from this one. This is a slightly different vantage on the same coat, but you can't take one look at it, and we've showed this before. That's it. This image here is the him in the flight suit, and you can see the Shutterstock watermark over it, but the watermark actually still exists on the Trump image on the left. So the Trump NFTs as sold contained an element of the watermark from Shutterstock, meaning he illegally obtained these images from the Shutterstock website as opposed to purchasing them. This is the where you would buy that image if you wanted to. It's unknown precisely what kind of penalties you would get for them, but you can see this is the image as available on Shutterstock. This image as well appears to have been stolen, and just the more people look into it, the more you can tell it's all of these are coming from somewhere other than something that Trump licensed. So yeah, and the Photoshop job was not great to begin with. I mean, it wasn't terrible, but you could tell that his head was just placed on, which, you know, kind of half expected. But that is staggering, and I am willing to wager of all of the NFTs, probably 80 to 90% are going to end up being stolen. This is obviously sloppy work. It's shoddy work, and I don't think they care where they took it. The other one, actually, by the way, was from NASA. That it was an actual NASA image that they had submitted in Wired magazine, I believe it was. So, yeah, he's going to end up in even more trouble on this one. The investment bank Oppenheimer and Company downgraded its rating for Tesla stock, citing risks posed by Tesla's CEO Elon Musk's ownership and management of Twitter. No shit. Quote, "We believe Mr. Musk is increasingly isolated as the steward of Twitter's finances with his user management on the platform. We see a potential should be in quotes, I think, for a negative feedback loop from the departure of Twitter advertisers and users," the firm said in an email to its clients. They also cited Twitter's decision to ban journalists from CNN and the New York Times who were covering Mr. Musk and for lying about the reasons doing it, in part saying that his exact location had been doxed by at least one of these journalists when in fact it had not, and demanding that the journalist remove the tweet. Elon Musk, who owns Twitter, is demanding that for his safety a journalist remove a tweet. Okay. They have also cited inconsistent application of standards for Twitter users and erratic behavior, quote, erratic behavior on behalf of the CEO and owner of Twitter. The email continued to say, quote, "We believe banning journalists without consistent defensible standards or clear communication in an environment where many people believe free speech is at risk is too much for a majority of consumers to continue supporting Mr. Musk / Tesla, particularly people ideologically aligned with climate change mitigation." I'll admit that line threw me, but okay. Tesla has lost over 58% of its market share since that is not correct. 58% of its share value since Musk began taking an interest in Twitter. Shares jumped only when Musk put a poll on Twitter asking whether or not he should resign as CEO. Meanwhile, 𝐒𝐢𝐬 Roth, Twitter's former head of trust and safety, who resigned from Twitter in protest in November, has faced an increasing barrage of threats in light of internal communications released by Musk explicitly to damage Mr. Roth. The so-called, quote, Twitter files report showed him and others discussing whether to ban Trump's account, with a number of employees actually dissenting on the issue. Since then, things have escalated further. There was a baseless accusation levied against Roth that he was a pedophile, which was liked by Elon Musk himself. This escalated things even more, calling for his execution, death being lynched, and any number of things, such that he eventually had to flee his own home. He is now, I tried to find where he is. I don't know. I don't know if he's either hiding or in protective. I wasn't able to find his current status. He's okay, but he had to flee the entire area, from what I understand. Since that time, followers of Musk have now levied similar accusations against two more members of Twitter's Trust and Safety Department. Meanwhile, in what is being touted widely as a warning to U.S.-led NATO, Russia has released a video of the loading of a 7,500-mile range Yars intercontinental ballistic missile into a silo. This missile has been activated. We'll get on to what that means in a second. The site is now declared live and has been placed on combat duty schedule. All activated means is it is prepared to go, as you would have any missile on standby. It doesn't mean they're going to release it right now. It doesn't mean they're going to release it tomorrow or next week. It just means it is now an active missile site. Ukraine has begun bolstering its defenses against the Belarus border as Vladimir Putin travels to Minsk to meet with the Belarusian leader Alexander Lukashenko. Putin has begun strengthening his own borders in the wake of incoming Ukrainian attacks, drones and missiles being flown over the border and striking inside Russia. And also to stop fleeing Russian civilians. The Russian Defense Ministry has announced that Russia would begin conducting joint military exercises with Belarus, including the flying of planes capable of holding and deploying strategic warheads. Now, while that was discussed and has been in the news heavily, we would like to remind you of our discussion with Commander Lance McMillan about those planes and the strategic warheads. We are very much aware that strategic level bombers are being used, but they are being retrofitted for conventional weapons. That means bombers that are capable of launching, in theory, nuclear weapons are actually being retrofitted to handle conventional weapons. We talked about why that represents a rather desperate move by Putin, but the news has been making a lot of, oh my God, they're deploying and preparing strategic bombers. They absolutely are, but they've been doing that for a while, and in each instance so far, they have retrofitted them for conventional weapons. This has a number of strategic problems for them, but that is what they've been doing. Essentially, they're doing it because they're out of bombers that are capable of doing these kinds of strikes, so they're degrading their strategic capabilities in order to enhance their tactical ones, meaning they're in trouble. At any rate, let's see, so they're now conducting these joint exercises, and there are now rumors that Putin has been pressuring Belarus to do a full military commitment to invading Ukraine. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov has said that the reports were, quote, totally stupid and a groundless fabrication. That's a direct quote. Russian oligarch Dmitry Zelenov, meanwhile, has died after falling down a flight of stairs while visiting a friend in the French Riviera. This comes after the death of Anatoly Gerasimenko, I think that's right, the former head of Moscow's Aviation Institute, who died in September, also of falling down a flight of stairs. Viewers will remember that this came on the heels of the death of Ravily Maganov, the oil tycoon who fell from the sixth floor of a hospital building. Yuri Voronov, who was found dead mysteriously in his swimming pool. Ivan Perchokin, who died when he fell overboard while sailing alone. And Andrei Kukharnovich, who fell from a cliff while hiking. Let's see, we've got Vyacheslav Tarin, helicopter crash. Tatiana Kulander, who overslept. And Dmitry Zelenov, also stairs. Overall, there have been 22 such accidental deaths in this year alone. Yeah, they're having difficulty with gravity, apparently, over there. Meanwhile, tens of thousands are without power. In breaking news, tens of thousands are without power after a 6.4 magnitude earthquake struck the northwestern California's Eureka area earlier today. Nearly 70,000 homes in Humboldt County were without power as of 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time today. Also, just a couple of hours ago, Congress has said that they will be releasing Donald Trump's tax returns. You may remember that they got those just a short while ago. They've said they will be releasing them later this week. That comes in addition to the final report from the January 6th committee, which we are expecting on tomorrow. So I think there's going to be an interesting week. Meanwhile, Marco Rubio, Mike Gallagher, and oh my God, I'm sorry. I think I'm going to skip that name. She's a Democrat who was introduced, I think, a bill, and Krishnamurthy. The long names kill me. They introduced a bill last week which would ban TikTok in the United States. Now, the bill is called the Antisocial CCP Act, which is short for. I'm gonna need to breathe here. That's short for Averting the National Threat of Intelligence Surveillance, Oppressive Censorship and Influence and Algorithmic Learning by the Chinese Communist Party bill. That's the full name of the bill. We hope you understand we're going to use the short version going forward. This bill seeks to ban the social media site, which is owned by China, from showing videos inside the U.S. The ban would actually also make it illegal for, first of all, make it illegal for any member of the government, the U.S. government, to use the site in any way. And it targets actually any site owned, any social media site owned by a hostile government, including possibly banning in the future Russian social media sites. TikTok, meanwhile, says that its user data is safely stored away from China and that its platform is safe for all users. And finally, tension and rhetoric has been escalating dramatically between Turkey and Greece over the last few months, and especially over the last couple of weeks. Recently, Turkish President Erdogan has said that Turkish troops could land in Greece, quote, suddenly one night, and issued a follow-up threat to Greece just last week, saying, quote, Greece is afraid of our missiles. They say that the Typhoon missile will hit Athens. Unless you stay calm, they are correct. The Greek foreign minister slammed that threat and said, quote, it is unacceptable and universally condemnable for threats of a missile attack against Greece to be made by an allied country, a NATO member. This has prompted Greece to approach Ukraine and the United States about possibly trading the Patriot system that is bound for Ukraine for their own missile system that they can use, then the Patriot, for defense against Turkey. Now, this is, that just started happening or making the news significantly yesterday. So, as you know, the U.S. is in negotiations to send the Patriot missile system over to Ukraine. Now, the Patriot system works much better against high-end missiles, and Russia's mostly out of those. The Greeks have their own missile system, which is not as good at the high end, but is very good at the medium to low end, and so they're going to swap the Patriot missile system for that one. This was just proposed, to the best of my knowledge, yesterday. The U.S. has not replied to this. The U.S. was agreeing to send the missiles to Ukraine, not to Greece. How Turkey would respond to U.S. Patriot missiles showing up in Greece is a good question. Another good question is, probably the Ukrainians could actually use the Greek missile system better, or anti-missile system, whatever, but more than they could use the Patriot, for reasons that we actually discussed on Downtime with Lance McMillan last week. Whether this is backroom dealing to get them the Patriot system, I don't know, but it's indicative of obviously a very serious problem if one NATO country is now considering or attempting to get an anti-air system to deploy against another country. Meanwhile, earlier today, the Greek Air Force apparently tried to intercept a Turkish F-16 over the Aegean Sea. But that F-16 was there legally because it was participating in a joint NATO exercise between NATO and Turkey, and all NATO allies, including Greece, had been notified more than 24 hours in advance of the exercise and that the planes would be there. Nonetheless, it does appear as if there was an attempt to intercept the F-16. Communications were had back and forth, and it was verified that that F-16 was not going anywhere, and the Greeks returned to base. Meanwhile, the president of Turkey has also claimed that Greece has been targeting Turkish warplanes with their own air defense systems. So as Turkish planes are flying in international airspace, that they have actually been targeted, not fired upon, but targeted by the Greek systems. They claim that Greek is attempting to expand its territorial waters, but in October, German Chancellor Scholz said that the Greeks, said in a Greek newspaper that the Turkey's own territorial claims against Greece are, quote, unacceptable, and that it was also unacceptable for, quote, one NATO partner to challenge the sovereignty of another. This also applies to more or less veiled military threats. The two countries have actually come to the brink of war 3 times in the last 50 years over a series of issues, including territorial claims in the Aegean Sea and energy exploration rights in the Mediterranean. And that, folks, is the rundown. Thank you all so much for joining us. I'm going to check the live chat. We do have a super chat. Sinister Porpoise, thank you so much. We can only get super chats on in time, so I appreciate you going back and doing that. I will get it. We've talked about this before. There are any number of reasons to have the 2 channels. If one of them gets struck, is certainly one of them, then we only lose one of our content, one type of content in time, and over time will be split that way. There's a couple other good reasons to do it. We'll, like I said, we'll post a formal note on the how and why in the Discord. I thought we already had, but you know, sometimes I'm a little disorganized. So thank you all for joining us. I see a lot of people in our live chat. Thank you. Yeah, that was a great speech at the beginning. That was really amazing. And for those of you who are just joining us again, that was Brandon Wolf at the beginning. He's worth hearing. It's only 5 minutes, but I thought really poignantly kind of said it all in 5 minutes. So. Stephanie Helms, glad to hop in anytime to talk trans issues. Well, I think we should do a show on it. So I think we'll I'll be happy to jump in and mock Marjorie Taylor Greene. I think the line for that last time we offered to have people come in for that, we couldn't handle it. We topped out at 60 or 70, 100. It was just nobody. She really is, in my view, detestable. Obviously, I guess that goes without saying. For me, that's usually a pretty high bar, but, just unfortunately a vile human being, I think. And I don't say that lightly, believe it or not. So, Sinister Porpoise, I actually had the right to use the NASA imagery because by law, it's probably, that's true. By law, if it was done by NASA, it is public domain. That's true. If the image is secondhand, oh God. Yeah, I'm just gonna scams all the way down. Yep. I think it's just going to add to his legal troubles. Now the 4.5 million that he got for that, and now another $1 million on the resale, which is insane. I think he was looking at it as a permanent source of revenue, and what he can do is, if he needs money under the table, he's just like, I've got these great NFTs. Why don't you go out and buy some? and he can get money under the table that way. A couple of problems. First of all, at this point, he can only get 10% of whatever anybody does unless they do another series. They're going to do another series. Of course they're going to do another series. So, but in the interim, it just means he can almost print money so long as there's somebody who's willing to donate. So, that's been a problem, quote, for people in government for a long time. If you want to get money from sources that should not be giving you money, how do you do it? And I think this really solves that problem reasonably elegantly if it had been done well at all, which it was done by Trump, so it wasn't. But it's a pretty good system for laundering money. None of that whole bill. Wow, that's a big bill, and I'm ambivalent about it. I get the problem with China and TikTok. I'm not convinced some of that's not punitive. We're pissed at China for any number of reasons. We want them to shut up about Taiwan. They're going to want to talk more about Taiwan because they're going to want to distract from their COVID problems. So we do this, and who knows, maybe everyone comes to a settlement, and, I don't know. I do think most of this TikTok thing is actually punitive. I do think there is a legit danger to it because I think they use it to track Americans. They use it to essentially to get intelligence on American culture, which has been used in the past reasonably well by Russia. Russia so far has been the masters of that kind of thing. I think China is looking to improve on that. So should TikTok be allowed? Well, that's a really good question. I'm not sure it's dangerous enough to just ban it outright. And I get a little concerned about banning things like that in a free country. I find it really bizarre that conservatives who are all for my freedom think that the government should intervene and ban a social media site because Americans aren't smart enough to use it on their own or safely, I guess is the message. That's what they tell us the message is when Democrats are trying to block something. So who knows? Anyways, thank you all for joining us. And what we are going to do is, I think at this point, unfortunately, we are going to have to cancel Lance McMillan on Thursday. Friday with Starsky is looking problematic. We'd like very much to do that show. We haven't had Starsky on in a while. I think that's an important show. So at this point right now, it is still on the schedule, but we are going to have to cancel Downtime with Lance McMillan on Thursday. We'll let you guys all know. It'll be on our Discord. Thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to keeping you guys up to date with the Trump tax situation and what's going on in California. Come on down to Discord, join us, and the Greece. I think that's a problem. I think Greece and Turkey. We'll see, and we'll keep you guys up to date with it. Thank you all so much, and we will see you on Friday. Have a good night.